Yes, hey
Welcome.
everybody. Good to be here with my people. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. I just like in November, I think it was celebrated 11 years in a row. I've been on the path for about, I think 18, 19 years though, with a couple of returns of symptoms in there. And have been also for most of my life a student of yogic science. Nature has been a solace for me since I was a child. And yeah, holistic. I'm known as the holistic peer recovery coach in Michigan. I'm one of the trainers for the state of Michigan for peer support specialist and the certifications for the recovery coaches, and also a CCAR facilitator out of Northern Michigan for a group known as NEMSAS. We only say NEMSAS now because it stands for Northern Michigan Substance Abuse Services. Um, Let's see. I'm also a mom. I have two daughters who are 10 years apart and amazing humans who teach me so much. So, nature is a big part of our world and a big part of what I share with other people, both in early recovery and longer term recovery, and then just people in general. Um, I have a diverse background, spiritually speaking. I have spent time in institutional spiritual religion. I've also spent time, a lot of time on the yoga mat and consider that a major part of my spirituality. I have studied ancestral spiritualities, which is a big part of my spiritual experience with nature. And I also am a quarter Anishinaabe, which is the indigenous North American of the Great Lakes region. My father's father, my father's mother was was 100% Scandinavian. So I've also explored. I heard David talking earlier about being Viking. I have Viking blood as well. And my mother's mother was pretty much straight English, her about 8 generations back to England, to the southern England, where Avebury and Somerset, where a lot of those ancient sites are. And I have my mom's dad, he was the bohemian like mix of everything. So I've got a little bit of Spanish, mostly German, French, and that's the really interesting watered down, I guess you could say, mix there. But I've found it very, very empowering to share with people their ancestral, like to inspire people to look at their ancestry in terms of healing intergenerational traumas and accessing our generational gifts as well, the gifts that come to us through our ancestors. So for me, I'm mentioning that because it is tied up in the subject matter today a little bit. This is an intro to nature-based spirituality for coaches. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint presentation. If anybody has any questions, along the way, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand, and I'm going to rely on Travis to give me some support in that. Um, Let me see here. I have, okay, it looks like Pete already has a question.
I do, Radasi, and thank you. Can you expand a little bit more, please, if you can, and maybe reveal itself, acknowledge the gifts from our ancestors?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, I'm going to reserve that for a little bit later on, but I'm really excited that that was a question straight out the gate. How cool. Nice to meet you also. Let me, I'm just getting into uh, my presentation. There we go. All right. So we're not going to skip through actually the introductions just because we're a little bit, um, you know, in a normal training where I would be doing this for like the whole day, I would definitely go through some introductions. And while I would love to know who all of you are, just thank you so much for being here and bringing your full presence and your curiosity, your open mind, your open hearts, and all that beautiful work that you do out there in service to our people. Um, Just want to offer that if anything that is shared here today is different or new, that you allow that to just really settle in and be curious and do some more research on it later. We all want to check our biases and investigate those and bring life into those so that we can be a better, more unconditional service to the people that we work with. And so, yeah, just remembering that this is a curious space, a safe space, a respectful space as we move forward. So, how about if we just really get started? Because one of my favorite things that nature provides for me is a sense of grounding. And so, I would love to invite us all. You can do this in whichever way would feel most beneficial to you, and even in a way that I'm not suggesting. There may be a way that you already ground that feels good to you. But for those of you who, I think we had somebody who's tuning in from a car, so you be safe, take some deep breaths, don't do this with eyes closed. One thing that's taught through the Heart Math Institute is if we bring our non-dominant hand to our heart and take a few deep breaths, and you can close down your eyes or not, but even just your hand there, allowing for us to bring attention to the heart space, the physical heart, to get the brain in coherence with the heart. So nice deep breath in and exhaling, allowing for ourselves to be settled in. Noticing that the breath comes and goes unsolicited by us, but we can participate with it. And in the next inhale, fully inhaling deep down into the belly, allowing the rib cage to expand, and exhaling, releasing all of the mental tension, all of the physical tension being held by the gravitational pull of the earth, by the chair you're sitting in, by the floor, the foundation of the building, by the earth underneath it. And one more nice deep breath in. So getting ourselves into this state of deeper breathing, of conscious presence, of being all the way here right now to allow ourselves to just drink in this information from our whole self, not just from our mind. And good, if you had your hand there, you can release your hand down. If you have your eyes closed, you can open your eyes. So today we're going to just take a look at the basic understanding. Thank you and welcome back, by the way. Gain a basic understanding of the history of trauma, stigma, and bias around this type of pathway and how we can become safe space holders. Just to understand that there are lots and lots of people out there who have sometimes reject the 12-step programs because of the spiritual component and find spirituality in different ways. Also, when we find a particular spiritual pathway, whether it's yoga or nature or Christianity or paganism or whatever it may be, that we understand what it is to really make the emphasis be about the other person, because sometimes we can get really excited about our path, which I have done in the past, and shut people down. So to have awarenesses around that. Learn what nature-based spirituality is and what types of pathways exist, the common threads among those, and the language that we can use. And learn how to support those we serve in exploring nature-based recovery or nature-based spirituality, which can be two different things, and they can also be the same thing. Because recovery, spending time in nature, having activities in nature, gardening, there's so many things that we can do that are nature-based that people might not necessarily call spiritual. And then there are things that we can do that are overtly spiritual for people, for ourselves in nature, and where this might inspire us in our own journey as well as to direct others. So, creating understanding. We're just going to touch in on this just to generate this understanding that this exists. We know already, you all already know that in the world and the reality of things, recovery is not one size fits all, and that many people experience spirituality not through formal religion, but through relationship. And I could just put a period there, through relationship with oneself, with the present moment. Maybe it's with another person, maybe it's with the sky, with water, with a tree. Maybe it's with a higher power. Maybe it's all of those things. With life itself, with the energy of creativity, with this aliveness of interconnectedness. And as recovery support professionals, whatever your label is, because in every state it's different, in every agency it can be different. Our role is to create a sense of safety and to have the ability to discover unique paths for each individual. Just that we don't have to understand what all the paths are and have an intimate relationship with all of them, but to know that they exist and where to direct people, just to have some of this in our toolbox if you don't already. And then very, very quickly, and I do, if this is new information to you and you're unfamiliar with it, I would urge you to explore this further personally, that throughout history, many earth-based paths of spirituality were suppressed or ridiculed, associated with fear or superstition, misunderstood, misrepresented. And this history, this factual history, has created stigma, bias, and judgment, and otherwise known as spiritual trauma for a lot of people. And even if you didn't directly experience that in your culture and your family in this lifetime, it exists in all of our DNA, as a matter of fact, whether that's being the one who's continuing to reinforce the stigma and bias, or you are experiencing these fears. So it's a very complex thing. And this ties right in with the ancestral and intergenerational healing and gifts that can be unlocked as well. So this history, unchecked, unaware, can make people feel unsafe in recovery spaces. It can silence spiritual expression and keep people from finding recovery, maintaining recovery, and finding their own spiritual expression. And then it can re-traumatize those harmed by rigid belief systems. In this lifetime, I've met many, many people who were involved in different things that were spiritual or religious and found those things to be harmful, including some of the things that I'm going to share today, because there's bad things and wrong fits across the board, no matter where people are at. So just to be aware of that and to tread consciously while putting the emphasis on the other person and what they need. All right. So again, when you do come across this for somebody, you have it, your spidey senses go off like, hey, whether it's it doesn't matter what kind it is, from what particular flavor of spiritual experience that someone may have had this experience, or where their spiritual trauma is, it's just real. And so is recovery from that, not just recovery from substances or from mental health, but also from spiritual trauma. And so we validate the harm, restore choice and agency. We separate abuse from the spirituality itself and reclaim meaning on one's own terms. So nature, really just being in nature, I have found. Now, first of all, let me just go back. We are not counselors and we're not counseling people through all of this. I'm just saying that the recovery process of reclaiming and healing from spiritual trauma can uh, include these pieces. So reclaiming meaning on one's own terms is a huge part. And you will have seen this perhaps for yourself. You will have seen this with people that you've worked with. I've seen it in 12-step programs. I've seen it in outside of that. I've seen it in recovery community organizations I've worked in. I've seen it with individuals that I've served around the world, that nature can be a gentle, non-coercive bridge. Because especially those of us with a background in substance use and recovery, have great BS meters, and so if somebody's trying to coerce us into something, we know it immediately, and we'll go into our default pattern, which would be either to placate them or to reject it or whatever our thing is. And that's not what we're looking for. We want people to feel safe. And just listen, I'll just give you an example of how someone's can be restored to feeling a sense of reclaiming meaning. I was at I'm just going to No, I'm not. I was going to stop sharing. Then I got nervous that it wasn't going to work out good for us, so just never mind. I was working at a treatment center, and this gal was wanting to leave, and I sat down with her under a tree outside in the smoking hole, and I was like, "Hey, are you willing to just breathe with me for a minute?" I'm like, "We had just one or two breaths." So we took a couple deep breaths, and then I was like, "Okay, do a favor, just look up, just look up." And so we're sitting under this tree, and she looks up through the branches of this tree, and she looks down, she takes a deep breath, she starts bawling, you know? I did nothing. I did nothing. We took like one or two, I think it was just one deep breath. She looked up at this tree, you guys, and she looks at me and she's like, all this stuff that she was like, the therapist had been trying to get her to get at, the director of the women's treatment home was trying to get her to like, sit with. She couldn't until she felt safe enough. But sitting under that tree, and I wasn't trying to get her not to leave or anything. Just, hey, sincerely, in my own nervous system, look up at this tree. And everything shifted for her in that moment. I will tell you that a few days later, she still left, because her nervous system was totally flipping out. But for that moment in time, she had this experience. We could call it spiritual, we could call it physiological, and it changed her. It allowed space for something to bust open. It was the gentle, non-coercive bridge. And I don't know what became of her, and maybe she got back and maybe she didn't, but I know that in that moment she was changed forever. She'll never forget it. I know this. And so that's just one of many, many, many instances I have where people, just by the way, looking up at a tree, well, we see all those branches interconnecting up there. It mirrors our neural connections in our brain, and our body responds to that. Like it helps bring us into alignment in a physiological way in the brain. And also it mimics all of those venous systems, the flow of the blood and fluid in our body. It mimics our own body, our own physiology. So to look up at a tree like that, and you should all try this someday, and get your kids to try it, get your partner to try it, get your friends to try it, get your people you serve to try it. It's like very non-threatening way of just helping reset a nervous system, you know? It's pretty amazing. All right. So, coaches, obviously, we don't teach or convert people's spiritual beliefs. We try to help them. We ask good questions, open-ended questions to discover, to understand them. We don't interpret spiritual experiences for people. Sometimes people will find out we're a particular kind of spiritual, and then they'll start trying to get us to, get in there with them. And I've had to be careful with this because, that's not my lane, and it's my lane in my personal life, but it's not my lane to be trying to get in there and interpret stuff for people. Otherwise, they start looking at us in a different light, we're no longer their peer support or their recovery support or their whatever the term is, we then become something else. We don't decide what their spirituality should be. Uh, we don't coerce them in a particular direction. And this can be very difficult for some people, especially when you're emphatic and you're so passionate about what has worked for you, whether that's your recovery pathway or your spiritual pathway. So we have to really check ourselves in this. All right. And then honor self-direction and autonomy is what we do. We reflect values, not beliefs, which is such a beautiful distinction to make. What the values are shared across all belief systems, generally speaking. And so to look at what those philosophies are, those values are, and to be able to embody those for ourselves, and then to be able to inspire those without putting labels around it for others is what we do. Support congruent, meaningful recovery pathways. What does congruent mean? That it's in alignment for this person, not for me. And not even necessarily for the agency I work for, if all they offer is 12 step. Like, what? is congruent for this person? And how can I be a resource broker for that? And create safe space for differences. I don't need to be like you. We need more of this in the world right now, don't we? I love that you are different from me. Let's all come together. I have space in me for us to be very different so we can learn from one another and create something spectacular together, you know? That is the beauty of what we get to do as recovery coaches. So I'm just going to give a definition. This is just a broad definition. It is just the one that I have on here. If you were to ask me tomorrow, I might have different things to say about it because spirituality is not about a belief. It's more about experiential. And if you had like five of us sitting here on a panel and we all said we're spiritual, we would all maybe have different things to say about what that means, what words we put to that, right? And you all do. All of you have your own way of saying this. So this is just something to simplify what I mean when I say nature-based spirituality. We're going to just look at what spirituality means today. Meaning, connection, belonging. That is a sense of spiritual experience for me personally. Relationship to self, others, and to life, to the movement of life. And for me, that includes a higher power, of forces greater than myself. But really, we don't even have to talk about that. It can just be to relationship, period, and end of the sentence. Distinct from doctrine or dogma. So while I may be fascinated and I am a student of different doctrines and dogmas, I am a philosophical lover of all types of doctrine and dogmas. Really, I find it fascinating. And I have friends who are leaders of different churches and factions and organizations and spiritual movements I love them. They are amazing, each in their own unique way. But when we talk about spirituality, we are not talking about the dogma or the doctrine or the packaging. We're talking about an experiential, energetic state. We're talking about an experience. We're talking about something that is very undescribable usually, not a package of things that we can repeat over and over again and sell to people. Talking about a beautiful experience, the thing that happens when you guys are working with someone, and in particular, those shared experiences, and that person knows it and they feel it, their nervous system is receiving that transmission that you get it, that you are holding the space for them because you get it. And then this thing happens. The spiritual transmission takes place, you know? It's like it's so beautiful. The light bulbs go off. This thing happens. It's in the unseen realm. And so that is distinctly different than here's a book and we show up here at these times and which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it's different from and can include that, but it's different from. All right, so what is nature-based spirituality then, you guys? Well, I mean, I have some words here. And again, it could be so many other words as well. You have your own experience. I know that you do. I know that each of you do. Nature-based spirituality is an umbrella term for spiritual orientations that experience nature as alive, meaningful, or relational. My first, no, one of my, not my first, but one of my dear friends who's an herbalist, a very well-known international herbalist, and one of my mentors always says when he first comes to do any talk or do any of his trainings, first of all, we have to start at the beginning. Nature is alive and we are nature. Right there is like, why I can look up at a tree and all of a sudden my nervous system remembers that I'm not just a thinking machine. You know what I'm saying? It does something for us to remember. I am nature. Nature is alive. It is. And there is a meaningful experience and there's a relationality that happens and a remembering really when I'm there. So it's about connection over belief. Beliefs can get formed then, but also there's this distinction between I observe this thing happening in nature. I observe this thing happening in my relationship to nature. I observe this thing happening between me and other humans versus I believe, because a belief is based at the 10% thinking level where experience happens in our whole self. And right? Just think about that for a minute. I believe something is happening here at the surface level of my mind. And you know what? We have all kinds of beliefs. Great. There's also subconscious beliefs. That's a whole nother thing. But it only happens in this small part of us. Whereas the experience comes from this holistic place. So nature just elicits that automatically for us. So, when it comes to nature-based spirituality, there are some, we could say, dogmas that come along with it and packages that come along with different nature-based spiritualities. But primarily, most people I know who would say that nature is their spiritual pathway they're non-dogmatic. It's not about the beliefs, it's about an experience and an embodied reality. There is a value of harmony, balance, and creativity, and a reverence for all of life. So across the board, these are shared values and shared points of descriptors, I guess we could say, that people I have found utilize when describing what nature-based spirituality is. But in essence, there is no single way to practice it or identify with it. There's not. In fact, Travis and I were talking earlier about how when we are even let's say in a 12-step program, everybody has, even if I'm following that to a T, the way it's supposed to be done, all of this, there's still a unique journey that I take that Eddie took a different one and David took a different one and Veronica took a different one. We all, even if I am inside of a thing and I'm following the thing, I'm still having my own unique journey. So this is true across the board, but there are some ways where it's like even more open and spacious. And this is part of the appeal of a need of people calling themselves spiritual but also of nature-based spiritualities. So I'm saying all this to preface before I go into some of these specific like pathways that may exist as well. Because you don't have to have a pathway. You don't have to have a book or a group or anything like that in order to have a nature-based spirituality or a nature-based recovery. But you could. So it's like, here we are, we're open-minded, we're learning about what exists. And I'm just framing it up that having said all of that, there are some things that are common across all of them. It's not a religion, not based on dogmatic belief, not required. In fact, no belief at all is required. I show up out there on the river, I'm going down the river, I don't need to believe anything. I'm out there at the river's side, I'm fishing, I'm hunting in the woods. I am, I am sitting under the stars. Oh my gosh, you guys, just think of this for a minute. I don't know when the last time was that you were able to see a clear night sky. Maybe it was last night. I'm in northern Michigan. It's been pretty freaking cloudy and cold here. And seeing the stars, like think about this. When was the last time you were able to do that? And what does that feel like? Like there's an awe that is created. If you're really present with it, there's this awe. It's humbling. It recalibrates your nervous system. So sometimes we think of nature as what's on the planet, but there's also like this whole universe that's pretty mind-blowing. And we love that sense of awe, you know? And sometimes when we're caught in our head, it is like this tedious, painful, limited thing, So like I'm a big fan of whatever I can, and I love to be in my head, which is why I meditate a lot because I need to get the heck out of there. But another way to do that is to be present with the thing that reminds us that we are not thinking machines, really, that we are part of nature, and to look out there at something so much greater than us, all those stars out there at night, or to be sitting in the forest. Have any of you been out? And then you're not going to be able to really answer this, but just think for yourself. I don't know if you've ever been out in the woods at night. And like it's scary, it's humbling, it's beautiful. There's so many different things, especially if you're alone out there. I used to go out hunting with my dad at night, and one time I had to walk back to the car because I was just like couldn't be out there anymore. But they made me walk back by myself, and I was so scared. Um, but there's something awe-inspiring about it. To just be, to see Lake Michigan, you guys, I get to see Lake Michigan almost every day. And do you know what's cool? It doesn't get old. It, I purposely go down there to look at it and say hello and let my awareness expand out. It is so cool. None of that has to do with belief, does it? No. I would say it is said the wisdom traditions around the world say that part of the reason why we get into wars is because of beliefs, fighting beliefs. 10% thinking level of the brain, fighting 10% thinking level of the brain. So this is another good reason to get out in nature, whether you want to wrap it up in spirituality or just let it be about your physiology and health. Good reasons. Okay, and then I have on here on the screen also that while it's relational with the seen and unseen, and I will speak into this a bit more, the seen and unseen, but we know what is seen. My body, I can see, I can't see inside my body, but I can see the outside. I can see yours. I can see all of the stuff that we created, we humans have created. I can see nature. Somebody has created things so that I can see the planet. I can see the stars. I can see the universe in different ways. And those are all the seen. But think about this for a moment. Like really drop in and be with this for a moment. Where does recovery, healing, and connection all take place? Is it on the seen or in the unseen? And you can put that in the chat if you like, but like it's important that you actually drop in and recognize that all of that happens in the unseen. And it's important also for you to recognize that love, which most of us think is quite a high value and something we all want and need, happens in the unseen. Now, I know a good mind will start arguing and say, yeah, but there needs to be demonstration of these things. Well, yes, but it first needs to happen sustainably in order for me to be able to convey it, transmit it. I have to have it on the unseen, and then I can convey it within the scene. So this is also about ancestral work because I can't see my DNA and my genes, and I can't see those influences on the subconscious level. That also exists on the unseen. Even though if you were to take a microscope and you'd be able to check out my genes, the gene markers, and see which are upregulated and which are downregulated at any given time. In essence, really, um, what could be coming alive for us and healing for us is something that it happens on the unseen. And we don't really have, uh, we can work with that just like we can work with the breath. You know, there's something that's just already there in the unseen, and we can work with that consciously in different ways. So a lot of people who are working with nature-based spirituality are interested in that very thing, myself included. Um, nature-based spirituality is not anti-science. Um, I don't know why I put that in there other than sometimes people, because of this, the biases, the judgments against nature-based spirituality being like weird, flaky, bad, wrong, um, airy fairy or whatever, like there's a lot of science that goes along with what being in nature can do for you, what ritual and ceremony in nature can do for you, what being in community in nature can do for you. And so there's actually quite a lot of science around this particular type of pathway. And many, many people that I know, for example, in my Druid studies, are very sciencey people. They're very, very intellectual, sciencey people. Common language. Well, you know what? I would like to just stop, share, and hope for the best here, and just see if anybody has any questions real quick before before I go on to the common language piece. Anybody got anything right now? All right, cool. Oh, we got David raising his hand. Right on.
I was looking at the responses, listening to you, absorbing what you're saying and recognizing the similarities within myself. And it's those, I'm not going to call them doubters, but I was there. Show me, prove to me, fucking walk on the fucking water, change the water to wine in front of my face. I want evidence. And it's crazy what you talk about. I mean, a lot of addiction, a lot of these things that we have done to ourselves because of whatever was not perceived or received or whatever. It's crazy watching science confirm this
Hmm.
over and over. You want proof of the unseen? Fractal geometry, fucking math right there, showing you why does my eye, when I look close at it, look like a nebula out in fucking space? Because what went wrong? We forgot we were connected to all this. And we believe that we're separate. And, I don't need nature. I live in a city. I don't have nature, whatever. We forget our connection, and that forgetfulness starts to make us feel angry, starts to make us feel alone. And what do I do to fix that? Hey, I got some fucking great drugs. I've got to numb myself so I don't have to feel this. But it's a shock in recovery when all of a sudden you fucking realize, oh my God, I am connected to this. I am connected to these people. I am connected to this wood and this desk and everything. And it the proof is all around. We just have to be open to see it.
Yeah, totally, David. I was just looking at that plant behind you there and thinking, the aliveness, because they called to me. My very first training as an herbalist was to sit and listen to plants. Like I wasn't taught the constituents and what the name was and all that stuff until I sat and listened to them. That was my first training for a year. And um the power of that to recognize, like, it's undeniable. I can't prove to you that they talk to us. But if you sit still long enough, you will know what I'm talking about. But you have to be willing to do that, you know?
It's the same simple experiment of take a plant, take a jar of rice, fill it with water, put two plants, separate on the side. And on this plant, every day, tell it, I love you, you're beautiful, feed it water, feed it, and give it these positive affirmations. And then on the other one, do it. You're fucking ugly. I hate you. You are the worst plant ever. Still feed it water and put them in the same sunlight. You want proof? You will have proof within a month to 3 months. This plant will wilt and die, even though you're still giving it the same thing, water,
Yeah.
nutrients,
Yeah.
sun.
Yeah, they have done those studies with water too, which is, big, good proof of what we do to ourselves.
Physics, the memory of water. Check it out on YouTube.
Right on.
45-minute
Put
water.
put that in the chat,
Yeah.
David. That's awesome. And then Mike was saying about we can listen to them with electrodes too. That's great. Let's go to Jeremy and then I'm going to proceed with the next portion.
Hi, everybody. This is very interesting so far. Thank you. I'm really appreciating this. Now, Um, I did put proof in the chat, and it and however much I want to, think it's connected to everything that David just shared. I know, and I can appreciate everything he did just share. Um, I just want to make a couple things a little more clear. Now, my FOMO about missing out, that is a an idea of which it's a I don't want to miss it. I
Mhm.
want to search it. I want to find it. You know what I mean? So that's the thing within me that I'm trying to get a hold of. Now, the second thing is I did not say I need proof. I said I desire it, which means my initial feeling inside is that's what I would like to see. Um, that's my inclination. I can totally appreciate what David said. I need to find it and look for it. I get it. My to a man, I desire it. I mean, I'm sorry. Um I want to see proof.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think desire is the correct word, and I believe I used it the way I wanted to.
Well, Jeremy, first of all, you're beautiful. Thank you so much for that share. And we should all n desire that proof, not from here, but from here. And that's what I hear you saying. I want to know for myself. That fear of missing out is like, let me have the experience. Let me get into a state where I'm experiencing this. Let me see for myself if this is true. And I've taught meditation for since 2001. And I mean, people all over the world have the same things to say about what we're talking about this. Like, well, that sounds cool. I need to see for myself. So when I was in the middle of my demise with my use, and I was hungover from a crazy night, and I was unwell and feeling horrible, and I'm reading this self-help book, trying to find my way out of this. I threw that book across the room and I was like, I don't want to hear anybody else telling me about any of this. I need it for myself. Give me the experience. How do I get the experience for myself? And that is, probably one of the biggest moments of my life that I wanted to know. Let me experientially find out and show me some tools to help me do that, which is what we've all been doing here, all of us. So that when I hear you share that, Jeremy, that may or may not be what you meant, but that's what you reminded me of.
Thank you. Yeah, one more thing,
Mhm.
and the desire is not the thing that will stop me. A desire to see proof. To see the proof is not if the journey to see it is not going to stop me. It's going to compel me.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I
So
thought you were saying. Yeah,
yes,
beautiful. Beautiful. In fact, all of the wisdom traditions on the planet say that we have to have a desire, which I think probably we've heard that in 12-step program as well. Like there has to be a desire. But the wisdom traditions will say a desire, not to just understand here, but to embody, to have an experience of. So when you have that desire, it's the fire that helps us proceed with taking that journey, our own hero's journey or our heroine's journey, if you will, the female version of that. So thank you very much, Jeremy. Awesome. Well, I'm going to attempt to reshare my screen with you. Um, cool. I think that worked. Yeah. Some nodding of the heads. Good. Jackie, I see you. Yeah, Veronica. Okay, cool. Thank you. So here's some common language. And if you have any like bells or whistles that go off in you that are of discomfort around any of this, I recommend that you lean into that, because we all carry some stigma, some bias if you're unfamiliar with any of this stuff. or even if you think you already know what it means, you know? So just go ahead and note that for yourself and breathe into that and just wonder where that came from if it does come up. And it may not. Pagan, for example, can bring up some bells for people. But pagan is a very, very broad umbrella term for nature-centered spiritual paths. I know people who are druids, for example, who do not consider themselves pagan but Christian. Blew my mind. I had no idea. Wiccan is not the same thing as witchcraft, though some people who practice Wiccan also practice witchcraft. I didn't know that. I became aware of that. A modern earth-based tradition emphasizing ritual and ethics. And in fact, a lot of these traditions, one of their very first tenets or philosophies is to do no harm. Across the board, do no harm. Do no harm to self, no harm to the environment, do no harm to others to the best of our ability. Druidry, a path centered on nature, wisdom, creativity, service, big part, and relationship with the land. I would say also there's some philosophical, historical studies that go along with a lot of the Druid groups that I have looked at. Indigenous spiritualities, place-based spiritual traditions specific to distinct cultures. So, for example, that could be anywhere in the world where they are continuing to practice unbroken their indigenous uh, traditions and spiritualities, rituals, and ceremonies, whether that be in Africa, here in the United States with my father's people, for example, and all of the other indigenous tribes of North America, or even of South Central and South America, or the the Sami peoples of Norway, of the Scandinavian countries, of which I have some ancestry as well, or the Mediterranean region, which I think a lot of that has been watered down, but there still are some people who consider themselves connected somehow to their indigenous roots and practices, to the Asian cultures in the Indonesian world and all of the Pacific Isles, the Maori peoples of Australia, New Zealand. And then, so that those are examples of the indigenous spiritualities. And then animism, which is a term that is used just, and some people consider themselves an animist, which is simply a belief that all of life has an aliveness, you know, so a stone, a tree, the waters, different waterways. And you could say that people could have this belief, but you could also say people have this experience. As I shared with you, I don't believe that plants can talk to me. I have an experience that they do. It's a different thing. Um, I could believe that it happens, but if I stop and get really present and have the experience myself, that's a totally different thing than thinking it probably happens for somebody, you know, totally different. So somebody could also have animist relationship with the universe, but not call themselves an animist. They might not even know what that word means, you know, but they have that experience. And then eco-spirituality, which is rooted in the care for the earth and ecological balance. So a lot of activists may consider themselves where they feel that they are spiritual, their spirituality is about the environment and the ecological balance between humans and the rest of nature. And then the most important thing here is that many people use no labels at all. I mean, you know, they might not even know what these terms mean. And they just have a living experience and an attraction to being in nature or um, you know, sitting and singing to the trees or the water, which by the way is something that a lot of indigenous cultures also do. But somebody can just start doing that, not know why they like to do that, and not call it anything. All right. Labels do not equal uniform practice. Many prefer to avoid labels entirely. Avoid assumptions. This is so hard. We all assume. I assume, you assume. We know where that leads. We do it unconsciously. But when we recognize that we do, it's just super classy and lovely to just say, I'm so sorry. I, wow, I didn't know what I mean. Wow, sorry about that, because we don't know. And we do this sometimes with people's ethnicities. People, have no idea that I'm Native American. Some people do, but when my hair used to be black before it started turning colors, I looked a little bit more like my grandfather, definitely like my dad. And but who cares, you know? Also, somebody who has darker skin and we think that they are whatever we think they are, and they're not that. So it's the same thing when it comes to spirituality. We don't know. Ask questions, be humble. I mean, find your lane with that. But this one here, I want to just touch on the respect of culture and lineage because it's been so popular. And here there's good reason why it's been popular to talk about appropriation and also appreciation. So there's a lot of protection around indigenous cultural traditions. So like if somebody were to put on a Sami, the reindeer herder tribe of Scandinavia, costuming for fun, or a Native American traditional dance outfit, the hoop dancers or the jingle dresses or whatever it may be, for fun, that would be totally inappropriate. It would be like saying, I am this when you are not. There is no fun in that. It is like parading around as a doctor or a lawyer, when you are not. But to have respect and appreciation and to learn about it is great. And I know that this will open up a can of worms for you. You must do your own research on this. We don't have time to go into this too far today. Just to simply understand that, like, for example, there are some Native American sweat lodge facilitators who open it to anyone, and there are others that will not. If you are not a card-carrying Native American, you are not allowed into certain events, and and that is just the way it is, and it should be respected. And lineage, lineage, to respect a lineage. So if, for example, a yogi lineage, which I was a part of for a very long time, from about 1999 till 2021, I I respected my lineage. I wasn't going to share certain parts of what our exploration was with people who were not within that lineage. It, first of all, wouldn't make any sense. It's like I'm not going to go into a doctor's meeting with MDs, psychiatrists, and such, and start trying to speak their language and pretend like I am one of them. So we just stay in our lane, check yourself before you wreck yourself. However, that being said, one really empowering thing for us to understand is that if you see, for the very longest time, we thought that anything that had to do with attuning to nature spiritually was like appropriating from Native Americans. And it's not the case because all of your ancestors, all of them, wherever your ancestors are from, were attuned to nature and had ritual, ceremony, prayer, utilized plant medicines and had relationship with the elements and with the earth itself and experienced an interconnectedness of life. So while we talk about respecting current lineage and culture, it is also incredibly empowering for us to realize wherever our people came from, which I noted in the very beginning of this, where I know where most of, I can't look at all of them. There's a lot of ancestors, but I know where my people come from, in essence. And I know what those people were doing who were close to the earth pre-colonization. And so that has been empowering for me to recognize I don't need to appropriate from anybody. I can go have a relationship with nature and I can fall in love with it. And it can be as overtly spiritual or just simply with nature as I want it to be, and whatever is authentic for me without taking from anyone else, without appropriating, and simply appreciating what my own personal experience is. And then that is enhanced when I do the research to explore where do my people come from. So this is something that as coaches, you could put out there. I didn't put this as a pathway, but ancestral exploration is something that I have found with hundreds of people I've worked with as a coach and as a teacher, that has inspired people to like find out who they are, where they come from. Something in the unseen clicks. Something in the unseen begins to take root and come together and reweave for them. And it may never be out on the outside, some overt thing that they get involved with, but it could very well be the generational healing that has been called for by your ancestors for generations and generations. And just I will go into a few of the gifts as Pete had asked about earlier, a little bit, and I'll let you actually kind of do your own exploration with that too through a little exercise we're going to do. But just take that in, let it marinate, drop it in there. Look at where your ancestors were and I want you to just be aware of another thing. Wherever your ancestors were on the planet, um, in order for them to survive, this goes back to the traumas that I was talking about earlier around nature-based spirituality. Your ancestors, all of our ancestors, had to set aside their language, their songs, their traditions, their ways, their clothing in order to fit into the colonized world. Okay. And I'm not saying that was right or wrong, good or bad. I'm just saying it happened to all of us at some point in history in order to survive, whether it was brute force that we had to do it, like some of my native ancestors, most recently, or what happened in Ireland or what happened in different places in Africa, whatever. There are places where it happened, we have it documented. But sometimes it happened just really quietly as well, where we had to evolve and survive and therefore set aside the old ways in order to be a part of what was happening in the times. And I'm not asking anybody to go back and try to revivify and um, do anything that like recreate or anything like that, but just to be aware of how that all got passed down to some of your limitations, some of your self-sabotage, some of your holding back, some of your not wanting to be seen and it feeling like life or death. That's what I'm talking about with this intergenerational trauma stuff. And it's all tied in with nature-based spirituality because that has been where I've found the greatest healing with it. So I'm sharing it with you today. Just do your own exploration with this, and then someday you might come across someone you serve who you just have the hit to share. Maybe you want to explore some ancestry stuff. Or maybe somebody's talking about it and you say, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Take a journey and find out. Or I tried this thing and it just brought some pieces of me back to myself. I don't know how to explain it, but it just did. So those are some suggestions for you as a part of being able to, yes, we respect other people's cultures and lineages that they are part of that we are not. We can learn about them, educate ourselves, be able to get resources to direct people in those directions, but we can also explore what our own personal culture and lineage has been in the past for our ancestors. Alrighty, which way do I go here? Sacred threads, shared threads. I was in this training yesterday that was called Sacred Threads. It was so awesome. It was so lit. I had an amazing time listening to these speakers. There was peers who are in leadership spaces talking about the sacred threads. And so That's why I said sacred instead of shared threads here, but shared threads across nature-based pathways. These themes also appear in many mystical and contemplative traditions around the world. So you just think about that. Do they? You can kind of think about that. While practice differ, many share interconnectedness with all of life, that everything is part of this universal matrix, like nothing's held separate from that. There's one consciousness, everything's animated from that. The wisdom traditions all talk about this, the interconnectedness, the way that we could also frame this, that the plants and animals are my relatives. You are my relative. The earth is my relative. The moon and the sun is my relative. Cycles, seasons, and elements. Oh, nature is conscious or relational. Yep. Si Very similar to the interconnectedness. There is a connection between me and all of life. Nature is alive, conscious, and there is a relationality to all of it. Cycles, seasons, and elements. And so this is something that is observed worldwide across most all of these, and oftentimes is not in some of these other more religious traditions, though sometimes, because we have holidays and holy days are all to signify something specific. And within a nature-based spirituality, those holy days, if you will, or holidays, signify astrological celestial events that have been going on since the beginning of time that influence us, as we know, like the moon cycles, for example, because our bodies are made up of all this water. And there is this way that when the moon is full, it pulls on us in a different way than when it is a new moon. And as it is growing and when it is declining, and the way that it influences our psychology as well as our body. And you just think of that like hungry, angry, lonely, tired influences the way that I show up. And if it, so the moon and the cycles and the seasons, it has been like 8 degrees here, 2 degrees here. That has had an impact physiologically on my brain. It has had an impact on my muscles. It has had an impact on my breathing and therefore on my energy level. It's all connected. And so, in an earth-based spirituality or a nature-based spirituality, people are honoring those so that they can get aligned with, like, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not dying. It's just cold as heck right now. And I'm off because of it. And I need to drink some more warm soups and warm teas and get some more rest. That's all. Sometimes we think that we're dying or we're crazy when really there's just a thunderstorm outside and it's jostling me. So sometimes being able to have a set point at different times in the year, and for this particular, often across the board, all over the planet, would be the winter and summer solstices, the spring and fall equinoxes, and then these other points that for our ancient ancestors might have made sometimes more sense than they do now, like the first harvest, the second harvest, the final harvest, which all happens summer, late summer, and early fall. And then Imbolc, which is coming up really quickly, which is like just this awareness that, yes, it's been a long, cold winter here in northern Michigan, and nature always starts very quietly in the unseen under the earth to wake back up around the 1st of February. And so that by the spring equinox, we start to see things change. We start to see the buds and the animals and things start to change. So, what we're doing in this way is connecting with elemental celestial forces that are predictable, that may not be the same exact day every single year, but are pretty close, that we know that these things are taking place. And where's my place within all of that so that I'm not just judging, that I am it connects us, it keeps us grounded. So many people enjoy that kind of observance. Some people don't even call it a holiday. It's an observance of a point in time. Here, I can make a point of distinction about where I'm at in the world that I live in right now. And it's very grounding and centering for them. Many people do this alone. So many people do it in groups of people. And oftentimes what happens in that would be songs and poetry and creativity and ritual and ceremony of different forms to just honor and acknowledge the sacredness of life. Also, in other ceremonies and rituals, there's songs, there's drumming. As I said, there are medicine songs that are sung to the waters that we listen. I was taught recently by a Sami teacher friend of mine. Again, Sami is from Scandinavia, the Scandinavian indigenous spiritualities. She taught me to listen and let the tree or the animal or the water sing through me, not that I'm singing to it. So there's two different ways that I've learned how to do that. One through my Native American mentor and one through this Sami friend of mine. So people will also just write poetry and songs and paint pictures and things in nature, in while they're in nature or about nature. The inspiration that is given to us, the awe-inspiring way that nature can just move us and change us, and to then take a little bit of that and turn it into something in this tangible world to then try to convey that experience to others and inspire others. Earth-based remedies and practices. So everything from the mud to herbs to mushrooms to plant bark, tree bark, tree sap, um, and other different types of earth-based remedies and practices for healing, for restoration, for centering. I see you there, Ryan. Just give me 1 second. And then honoring ancestors or lineage, which we already talked quite a bit about. So I'm going to go ahead and stop share for a moment. And Ryan, what you got for us?
I was just wondering, there was something that I came across, a friend of mine, her name happens to be Sylvia, and she's from Poland, and mentioned that her name meant forest. And we were looking into things further and looked into something called a silvotherapy. I, I would think you're familiar with that.
Are you saying Silva?
Silvotherapy.
Silvo. I'm not. I'm not.
Oh,
Tell me
okay.
more.
It's silvotherapy is known as forest bathing.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I know about that. I had
Nature-based
not heard
therapy.
that term.
Yeah, that's the term that they use it by. Nature-based therapeutic approach involving slow, mindful, and sensory-driven walks in the forest.
Yeah.
And that you can actually get certifications for that. And I was just wondering whether or not you were aware of that, or you had any information about
Thank
that,
you.
because this kind of goes right along with what
Totally.
you're talking about.
I absolutely, Ryan. And let me just tell you when that term I've not heard Silva therapy, but forest bathing I have. And when that term came out, I giggled because I was like, well, I've been taking people into forest bathe for de a couple decades now, and I just didn't know that's what it was called. So I would
I put
love
it in the comment section for anybody who's
beautiful.
interested in that. But I do know of an attorney in New York who pretty much grew tired of the fast-paced environment, and has retired from that and is a certified silvotherapist. And I was surprised to hear how many people used her services
Mhm.
to do that, and to just get in touch with nature, and with the forest, and with you know
Yes, fantastic. Thank you, Ryan.
no problem. I just wanted to
Absolutely.
share that. Thank you.
No, love to meet you guys. It's great. Um, And also, that is something that I was going to share today. I want to just mention, though, I love that this woman got tired of the rat race and got certified in this and people are utilizing this. I love that. And then I also really, I was raised in a grassroots way, and I think that the work that we do in some ways is grassroots to just recognize that we can package anything and sell it. I'm going to share with you how to do a very basic forest bathing exercise today and very soon here. So, because it just is so powerful for us to recognize, like, and one thing that I see in the recovery coach world that as a trainer for the state of Michigan, I really want to see changes that we are professionals and that we don't need more certifications because I'm a person who will just like, oh, I should get trained in that. I should get certified in that. So um, go get certified as a forest bather if you want to, but also if you're in a position where you people are able to take people outside to sit with a couple of trees, you can, I'm gonna tell you how you can do that because it's very, very accessible and very grassroots and very attainable for us without having to go and get another credential. But go get another credential if you want to also. All right. So, let's go back to the presentation. And thanks again for sharing that, Ryan. All righty. You guys are awesome. Might be a good time to stretch your body and, just give a little. Oh, we're almost there, you guys. It's a long time to sit and take things in, I know, in the middle of your day. So thank you for showing up. Thanks for being here with me. All right, we went through quite a bit of this, and I'm going to kind of breeze through some of this because I do want to get to the exercise that I'm so excited to take you through. Um, the pillars of nature spirituality, spending time in nature, just being in nature itself, which Ryan it was a great segue into this. You don't have to have anything in particular. You don't have to call it spiritual, but just being in nature. And if you are in the city and you don't know where there's a tree that you can go put your hand on, which there probably is somewhere, even if it's in some kind of a pot or something. But you have a plant in your building, in your room, you can breathe with the plant. You can just consciously be present, even if it's for 3 breaths. Because as you breathe in, you're breathing in oxygen from that plant. And as you breathe out, you're breathing out carbon dioxide as a giveaway to that plant. And it is a meditation and it is slowing down your nervous system. It is bringing coherence to your brain. And it's also helping you create a relationship with nature that is beautiful and will just give you some good medicine in terms of being fulfilled, feeling connected. The opposite of addiction is connection. Sacred relationship with the land. So you can take that to whatever level you want to. You can also, I forgot also spending time in nature with groups, go out hiking, take a trip, go see sights, go do a meditation in the woods, um, study herbalism, go down the river, whatever. There's a gazillion things that you can do out in nature, including just go for a walk and be mindful. And you can do that breathing exercise while you're out there too, just every once in a while, realizing what is actually already happening. As I breathe in, this tree is giving me oxygen. I am giving it back carbon dioxide. Breathing in, breathing out. Expanding definitions by some include not only the planet, but the universe, the planets, the stars. So you can also let your awareness expand out, and in particular at night, this is more obvious to us. But when the sun is shining, there's this being, the grandfather sky and the grandfather sun and the grandmother moon. And that I can look at it that way or not. But to just even pause and find more presence with nature. Storytelling, language under ancestral practice. Storytelling, huge part of us as humans and finding connection and meaning. Language, learning some of your ancestral language, you know. It's been so powerful for me to learn just a little bit of a couple of my ancestral languages. So powerful. Ritual and ceremony, song, strumming, music, prayer, dance, ancestral lands. So, what are those? Do I have a relationship with those ancestral lands? Do I know what they are? Have I been there? Honoring ancestors. If that's of interest to you, look up the different ways people do that. The Day of the Dead is a beautiful way that people honor ancestors in the Latin tradition, in Mexico. Traditional foods and medicines, what are they? Do you know what they are? How does your body respond to them? Have you tried them? Costuming and regalia, do I know what my ancestors may have worn or what they do wear? What people within these these traditions, what are traditional ways of dressing that people still wear sometimes? Elemental work and more. It is individualized, as has been said many times. So if somebody says they are spiritual or they are pagan or they are druid or they are indigenous or they are Wiccan or whatever, like you don't actually know what that means. Just know that straight out the gate. I don't actually know what that means. Let me be a good recovery coach or curious human and ask some more questions to get to know this person and what they actually mean. And then same for you. You don't have to fit in a box. If you're a person who identifies as someone who wants to explore nature-based spirituality or just more of nature, you don't have to fit in any of these boxes. It's not required. One thing that I like to ask people is like, creativity is a huge part of the natural flow of energy that comes through us. I've been a student of yogic science and Asian healing arts for a couple decades. And the way that we interpret the flow of life force through us is about the flow of nature. The same energy that moves the sap through the tree or inspires the clouds to move or the sun to shine or for the day to turn into night is this same energy that moves the blood through our body and pumps the heart and the air in and out of our lungs. And you don't have to believe that, but if you sat with it for a moment, you might feel that it makes some kind of sense. And that is the framework. Those are a couple of foundational beliefs through most of the wisdom traditions that I've studied. And it makes sense when I'm sitting in nature that it is remembering me, helping me remember myself, that I am nature. So just for a moment, I would love for you to just consider what brings you a sense of peace or connection. Like think about that right now. Drop into yourself what actually brings a sense of peace into your experience. Where do you find peace? And what allows you to feel a sense of connection? What brings that forward for you? And I'm not asking for you to respond to that here for me. I want you to know that for yourself. Where do you feel most yourself? And that could be, I want to challenge you in this, like to be the quirky, weird, human that you are, which is awesome. Like, I want to feel free to be the weirdo that I am and as big and as quiet and as whatever I am in any given moment. I want people around me where I know I can be that. Like in this room, I know I can be me because I'm with my people. It's safe. All right. That's important. But what I want to know is really where you find that sense of peace and connection quietly and are able to be yourself, like without the identity, like I got a role to play, where can I just be? And then when you think about the times that you have spent in nature, and I know I'm really like spoiled or blessed, really, because I grew up in northern Michigan. I live here now, although I'm moving to Florida soon because it's too dang cold here. I'm over it. My muscles are over it. But it is gorgeous here. Like it is gorgeous here. And so I've had a lot of nature in my life. I spent time out there as a little rugrat running through the woods with my cousins. But some of you haven't had as much, but you have had some time. Even just looking at it on the internet, like what does it do? Does it afford you a sense of peace? Does it shift your nervous system? Does it bring you a sense of connection? Do you feel safe to be yourself in nature? Like if you've ever been out walking in the woods, do you feel pressured to be something or do you just get to be? So it's really important for you to recognize, like, for me, that's a spiritual experience. I don't need to put labels and ritual and ceremony and all that stuff around it in order for me to take myself into an experience where it is healthy for me to be out there breathing all that oxygen, to be out there moving around, and to allow for my nervous system to feel safe, you know? I get to feel safe. I know some people, haven't spent much time in nature and they get out there sometimes and they don't feel safe because it's like the big bad wolf or something out there. And so then go with somebody like me who's spent time. Although if I was in certain places on the planet, I'd be terrified, right? The Amazon jungle, for example, I'd be nervous. I'd want somebody to be there with me. I don't know about all of the spiders and the scorpions and the snakes. So I need somebody to help regulate me in that environment. But in general, you guys, in general, nature does support our nervous system regulation, and it does reduce stress and emotional overwhelm. These are scientific general facts. It helps heal trauma stored in the body, and how it does that is because it helps us to feel regulated and safe. And therefore, we release our muscle tension, we release our holding, we breathe differently, and then there's a dislodging of traumas that can then happen. I'm not saying it's overt, it's subtle, but it can very much happen. And spending enough time out there can help with this. Restoring meaning, belonging, and purpose, because people come out of the woods and all of a sudden they're not like worried about what their purpose is and what the meaning of life is because they feel aligned with it quietly, organically. It offers unconditional presence. The trees are not judging me. The forest path is not judging me. The river is not judging me. The water doesn't care how great I am or how I messed up today. It doesn't care. It has zero interest. It's just here unconditionally being itself, allowing me to be myself. It's accessible and it's low cost, you know? Hey, I'm going to go commune with a tree. I'm going to look up at the sky. That is also nature, whatever it is. And by the way, I had a woman was working with who was in jail, and she's like, I only, or in prison, and she was like, I only get to see outside like once in a great while. So what you're telling me isn't going to work. And I was like, well, you have your imagination, which we're going to get to in just a minute. Okay, so put a little place marker in that. You have your imagination. You remember what the sky looked like. You remember what a tree looks like. Bringing nature to life. So, as we already said, arts and crafts in nature, studying various aspects of science can be really cool. Like studying the rocks, studying different critters, studying different trees, studying herbalism, studying whatever can be a way to give you purpose and spend more time out there. Honoring seasons and cycles, as we already discussed, ecotherapy or eco-spirituality as a practice, forest bathing. So there you go, Ryan. Earthing, which is really bringing your awareness to your feet and consciously bringing those energies up. So I learned this and practiced this through Tai Chi and Qigong, but there are also earthing mats that are very fascinating and help people be connected to the electromagnetic field, which is very, very nourishing to our body. You can look that up. And then I'm going to skip over to the seasonal grounding. So I already went into this in a little bit of detail, but you could look at this. This is an image of Imbolc here of the this is the cross of Bridget. Bridget is a Celtic goddess who is the patroness of Imbolc from ancient Celtic ancestry, and really just represents. You see this I think they're called snowdrops or something. Somebody else will know what they're called. But these come up in the spring, late winter, early spring, to let us know that there's an aliveness, even though it's still dark and cold and snowy where I'm at anyway. And it gives us hope that there will be a dependable seasonal shift coming. Creative expression. in so many different ways. People create all kinds of things in nature and in their yards, in communal spaces, and it can be a powerful way to do it by yourself or with others. These are some resources and pathways for you, in particular for specific to nature-based spirituality, some of which are specific to recovery. Wellbriety, which I trained as a fire starter for Wellbriety. It's a Native American pathway for Native Americans. However, it's open to anyone. And so the book, the Red Road to Wellbriety, written by Don Coyes, who's the founder of the White Bison Institute and the Wellbriety movement. There are lots of trainings available, both online and in person. And it's a beautiful thing, in particular, if you live in a population in an area where there is a high population of Native Americans that you serve, both for you to be able to bring that into the community, but also for you to empower them to go explore if you don't have, if this isn't your pathway. Because there are online Wellbriety meetings. I used to run one through In the Rooms. Pagans in Recovery is a well-known, well-established 12-step group for pagans who want a safe place to be able to do 12-step work, but not have to use the word God. Or there are some non-secular people in that as well. Esoterical Recovery is my Facebook group. It's a very small group of people who are exploring esoteric, both like ascension, meditation, yogic science, as well as nature-based stuff and the healing journey. So I threw that in there. Druidry. So there are many different Druid orders, but the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids is the one that I'm connected with, that I've studied with for the last like 3-4 years. I began studying through this just as a curiosity to explore my English ancestry, my Celtic ancestry, both the Germanic and the English. So I've learned a lot about the history actually through this. Very cool. Wiccan witchcraft, women's spirituality, eco-spirituality or therapy, herbalists, and nature enthusiast groups are also different resources for people. And then local ethical exploration of nature preserves and land. So we say this because sometimes people don't know how to go out in nature and not leave trash and to be mindful. People who are out there, you know, and not having it's new to them. Sometimes they need to learn the rules of the road. So go ahead and look up, use your Chat GPT or something, use Google. What does it mean to ethically explore nature preserve? What do I do and what do I don't do? Go ahead and look that up if you want to do that. It's not a big deal. There's just a couple rules of the road that are nice to follow. All right, we're not breaking off tree branches and tearing out plants and stuff like that. We're not scaring off the wildlife. We're not leaving our trash, things like that. Okay, y'all ready for this? We're going to have an experiential practice with a guided journey. So it's a bit of a meditation to get you in touch with your own relationship with nature and what you might like for it to be, whether or not you ever do anything with this in the future or not. Hopefully, this will just give you some kind of place marker to be able to serve the people that you work with better, and maybe it will bless you too. One thing it for sure will do is help you to be, a little more relaxed and a little more present. So if anybody's watching this and you can't do this fully with eyes closed, that's fine. If anybody's in an environment where you don't feel safe to close your eyes, that's fine. You can listen along, and I would say try to use it as a meditation and keep your mind on what I am saying. When you get distracted, should you get distracted, you just come back. Like put your attention back on my voice and come back to exactly what I'm guiding you through, okay? Um, all right, so without further ado, if you would mind just dropping in with me here, being present, allowing for yourself to settle in, and if you can close down your eyes, go ahead and do that now. Always, my body likes to take a nice deep breath when I close my eyes naturally, but you can participate and take a nice deep breath too if you like. And with every exhalation, we're going to allow for ourselves to just release into nature, into our own nature, into the earth, into being held and supported by gravity. And with every inhalation, we're going to just give a little more attention that we've been given the gift of life today. What a blessing that is, allowing for the inspiration to inspire us in gratitude, and for the exhalation to allow us to let go of anything in the mind, anything in the body that we can release down into gravity for the earth to hold for us. And I asked you already just a little bit ago what your experience is in nature, And so I want you to just let your awareness go to a time you were in nature. That might have been yesterday. It might have been when you were a child. It might have been somewhere in between. You're going to bring up what was going on in that situation. Were you with other people? Was it by the water? Were you talking to some flowers or birds? Were you with your family? Were you by yourself? Were you with a bunch of friends or your partner? Were you sitting against a tree? Were you down a river, hiking in the mountains, sitting on a patch of grass, laying down looking up at the clouds or the stars? And just feel, remember, recall the general sense of being out there, you know? There might have been a lot of things going on, but I want you to hone in on what it was like, what it felt like in your body. Was your spirit at rest? Was there a sense of being energized or invigorated? Did it just feel good? Or as I said early on, maybe sometimes it can also be a little unnerving because it's new and weird. And that's welcome too. A little outside your comfort zone's not bad. Was there a sense of peace, a sense of connection, a sense of centering? A lot of times, sometimes people will say, I don't know how to explain this, or they'll just say, I don't know, but it was whatever. And we're going to just push that aside, like really try to recall being in this environment, recalling this memory of being in nature, and allowing yourself to recognize those qualities of being at ease with yourself in the world. And then I want you to just allow yourself to let your imagination come online, like you're a child, very creative child with a good imagination. And we're going to call that part of you forward now. So you're still like kind of halfway in this memory of nature, but you're bringing in, like, you're going to play pretend now, make some stuff up. And in this environment, in nature, just like, what other kind of natural environment do you love to explore? And let that come in as your visualization. So for me, I'll call in the Amazon because I do have a shaman friend who lives in the Amazon who has an alligator farm of all things. And I've never been there. Kind of freaks me out. Not the alligators, but everything else. And so just bring to mind someplace you would like to explore. Maybe it's mountains, maybe it's water, maybe you want to come visit and see Lake Michigan, in the summer. Maybe it is Machu Picchu. Maybe it's You want to go explore ancestral lands of the British Isles or of Scandinavia or Spain, South America. Maybe there are places in the United States like the Grand Canyon. Maybe you just want to go back to your favorite camping spot. And so just really see this, allow yourself to just be with this one idea, this one place, the childlike sense of wonder and imagination and creativity, play pretend what it would be like to be in that environment. The way that the environment attunes your nervous system, plays you like an instrument, and awakens parts of you that you don't often know are even there. It makes you breathe differently, relax about your own self in the world. What else do you notice? What else do you notice about being at this place here in nature? And then just imagine here now, noticing what qualities are here for you. Just imagine your ancestors, all your ancestors. There's lots of them. And like your ancestors from some particular lineage and where they might have been at on the planet and what it was like for them in that environment. If you even know, like you might have to just imagine. Let something be made up in your mind. You don't have to, there's no test here. Just let it come. What it looked like for them to be so connected to nature. What were the benefits? The realities. So different from our modern world where we have to choose to be connected to nature. And then just one more step here. While you allow for this childlike sense of wonder, this play pretend, this awareness of how nature can bless your nervous system and your soul, and how your ancestors may have connected with it and places that you might wish to visit and what it does for you. And two, I want you to imagine yourself working with somebody, like coaching somebody in nature. Maybe there's a tree outside your work with a picnic table under it. Maybe there's a nature preserve where you can, or right outside your agency, or, a place where you might be able to have one of your groups or meet people for sessions. Maybe there's an activity that you could put together that is a group activity with other recovery coaches, with other people in your agency, or with other people in recovery, if you're a person in recovery, to spend time in nature in service to the community, in service to those you serve already, or just be the person in your recovery community who helps put something like this together. A kayaking trip, a camping trip, a hike through the woods or through the mountains. And what lights your heart up in this? Maybe nothing does. Maybe you want to learn forest bathing and be able to take people and have that experience, either in the broader community or the recovery community or in your agency. Good. And now I'm going to have you just imagine, use your imagination. I'm going to have you just do this where you are walking through some forest. Maybe it's Northern Michigan forest, maybe it's Vermont, maybe it's Florida, maybe it's wherever. I don't know. Lots of trees. Maybe there's some moss, some dirt, some leaves on the ground, lots of wild flowers and plants growing. And as you walk, each step you take, you feel from the back of your foot to your toes, the back of your foot to your toes, mindfully connected. You're aware. And with every breath you take, you're breathing in the forest and breathing out your giveaway back to the forest. And as you move through the forest, your entire body, from your feet to your head, is being energized and attuned by the transmission of nature, waking up your own nature and reminding you that you are part of it. And you are expressing that by its attuning you. Your vibrational frequency is now playing out a different tune so that you're in harmony with this environment. This is one aspect of forest bathing, mindfully allowing yourself to drink in that which nature is always providing, reawakening yourself as nature, and then you transmitting that all effortlessly, just simply by shifting attention, participating a little bit. Nice deep breath in, everybody. And with this nice deep breath in, you're going to bring your awareness back to where you actually are in this time and space. And bring yourself back to all time and space. Just allow yourself to land right here. I know some of you were probably not able to do that with us. Some of you did it. For those of you who actually did it, bring yourself, just really let yourself get back landed. And I wonder if anybody has any, it can be tricky after something like that to be able to talk, but does anybody have anything they'd like to share? There'll be time as well, if not right now, shortly. Oh, Eddie, right on.
Thanks very much, Radasi. That was I'm in the forest every day. And but when you were like when you're, take your childlike self. And it was really interesting. Like I have this image of a picture from when I was like, I think in nursery school. It's like in my head. And it's like, I've got this like, it's just very innocent. It just this wonderful thing came in, and then I was just like tumbling through the forest, and it was just wild because I'm really hungry too. So I'm getting distracted by like I'm hungry, I want to eat with like a good meditation. Um, so it just really thoughtful. So thank you.
Absolutely, that's great. And what an inspiration that you're in the woods all the time. How cool.
With dogs.
That makes sense. Yeah, if anybody's got pets, it gets you out there. Thank you for that. Uh, Veronica.
Yes, that was a wonderful experience. I shared in the chat, my favorite place is the place I'm staying at right now in my background. Last September, we have a recovery outings group in the Western foothills of Maine, and we hiked this Table Rock ledge and took these pictures from the top of the ledge and looking out across Old Speck Mountain, which I've hiked. That's an 8-hour hike all the way up and back. That's a long, full day, but this is my favorite area to be in because it is so immersed in nature. We always check the trails down through the valley. There are waterfalls, there are caves. We get to explore and climb around. I love touching the trees and the
I'm
lichen
coming
and
to
just
visit.
feeling the softness and it's so sensory and stimulating. And it was a great group of people that we went with. Um, I love my big outings, but I also like camping alone, my family, my husband and I and our dog, and going out to places where we are very away from everybody else, to really absorb the silence of nature and the beautiful sounds that are not man-made. It's a good experience. You brought me right back there. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing it with us. It's
You're
amazing.
welcome.
Um, Anybody else right now? I have a little bit more to get through. So good. I'm just blowing through here, looking at who all's here. Awesome. Jason.
Hi there. Sorry I was a little late. One of the things that, of course, brings me back is a lot of memories of when I was growing up. I did a lot of fishing, and me and my best friend would walk up and down the rivers, and we spent 50% of the time fishing, the other 50% of the time just looking around at birds that we don't normally see in the towns that we lived in or areas. And one of the things I plan on doing when I retire is actually selling everything I have, buying a camper, and traveling the country to see the things that I have not yet seen. And 90% of that is going to be nature. And this line comes from a song, and I promise I won't sing it, but another thing I like to do is pretend I'm an eagle and project myself into what he sees. And
Mm.
if when I watch the video of that song, they have a background of that situation. It's just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
Mm. Wow, that's lovely. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's great, Jason. Thank you. Jeremy.
Hey, thank you for that. That was very interesting. I the thing that I thought I kept being taken to is my or my attraction to water. Water is a big, like, it's a thing for me. I understand there's trees, and I understand there's all these different types of nature. But I'm almost overtly and obsessively drawn to water, and that's a big I think it's a big door opening, or a big thing for me to explore more about.
Heck yeah. Yes. Have you been to the Great Lakes region to visit?
I live in Buffalo, New York. I live on a Great Lake.
Yeah,
So
we
when you
live.
mentioned the Lake Michigan, I almost said, and Lake Erie. So we're right there. So
You
Niagara
have to
Falls.
come here though. It's different. It's
I
different to
I
be
heard.
surrounded by Superior, Lake Michigan, and Huron and Erie. It's like just come visit sometime. I don't spend nearly enough time in the Upper Peninsula, but yeah, yeah, good for you, what not Jason, sorry, Jeremy. It's um follow the thread. Yeah, what follow the thread, each of us in whatever way. And then Jenny just put something lovely from Mary Oliver in the chat. Take a look at that. Thank you for that. That's a beautiful example of creativity from nature. And we have many, many poets from writers who are inspired by nature. Yeah, David said Mackinac Island. Yep. All right, you guys. Well, I have a little bit more to share. And so let me get back to that before we say adieu here today. All right. Just to review how to support others, how to be a safe place, in particular if this is new stuff for you. Just noticing our own biases and fears. Sometimes I, even as a person who has so many friends in so many different types of religion and spirituality, have had to recognize my own biases and my own judgments, and to really come back to working with that on one hand, but then coming back to motivational interviewing to get to know the other person, which is we all should be really well practiced at. And that is what brings you a sense of peace or connection. Like I asked you, you know, just to ask somebody that. Where do you feel most grounded or yourself? There were times when I had no idea, right? Especially in early recovery, no clue. What feels meaningful or supportive to you right now? Gosh, powerful questions that 50 other questions could get asked just to get down to, you know? Always let the individual lead. You guys all know this. Curiosity builds trust. Like, oh my gosh, this person is really taking interest in what I want. They're not just going to tell me what to do. Normalize exploration. Hey, you don't have to have a label. You don't have to be committed to your thing right now. Let's just explore. Here's some things to explore. Offer alignment resources when appropriate. Aligned, meaning what they're asking for, not what they're not asking for. Trying to push them in a different direction, perhaps, is what this would be. Put them in the direction they are looking for, you know? And sometimes we miss the mark with what we think that they're looking for. So always being humble, curious, and attempting to offer aligned resources. And then takeaways. Nature-based spirituality is a valid recovery pathway, and your openness to it expands recovery for everyone. Engaging in the nature-based activities, whether or not it's spiritual or not, can assist in healing the mind, body, and soul, yours and those you serve. Exploring nature-based spirituality can be simple or intricate, whatever is in the interest of the individual. Experience rather than belief or knowledge is the key to this type of pathway. What's the experience like? And then the reflections. I want to hear from you. We have, a little bit of time. So one insight, one curiosity, or one way this supports your peer work. So please, I would love, if you want to put it in the chat, that's great, but I'd love to hear some of your voices if possible as well. That's, maybe it's from the visualization, the guided journey of like how you might want to implement this nature into your own life or into serving others, or one thing you learned today that you didn't know before you showed up here. Awesome, Josh.
Hey, thanks for everything. I really appreciate your vibe and your experience and strength and hope and all of that. So namaste as well. So um, I have in my journey, I have 13 years of active, very active sobriety, and it was steeped in the 12 steps of AA. What I am finding in my own growth and in working with others, I've seen so many people walk into the rooms when I say beautifully broken, like wide open and vulnerable, and look at the steps as suggested and just walk out because they can't relate to the God thing. And even though they might have been seeking recovery and ready at the moment, they just turned away and said, I can't. I just can't. And that's hard when I watch that happen. So a big part of the practice that I'm building to help others is based around offering other paths to connectedness. So thank you very much for everything you shared today.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I know I remember feeling that way too in the rooms. And
Mhm.
recovery, I was very judgmental to the whole recovery coach movement actually in the beginning. Now I'm
Mhm.
a trainer of recovery coaches.
Full circle.
It's so cool how we can grow and evolve when we come to want to keep growing. So
Yeah,
thank you
I
for
agree.
that.
Of course. Thank you.
Beautiful. Veronica and then Carrie.
Yes, since we already have a recovery outings program here in the Western Foothills, I think I want to go in a different direction with my recovery center. I think I'd like to rebuild the community garden and get people down by the river and get them in the dirt, making, learning how to grow their food and getting involved and being connected with other people. And I really like gardening. So I think that might be the route that I take to help people get into some more nature. And it's right next to the athletic complex and a walking trail. So we could definitely get out of the garden and get back into the garden all in the same area.
Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, I am so coming to visit you, Veronica. We got lots to do. I love it. How cool. Very good. Carrie.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me?
Hmm.
Okay. My past has been in and out of recovery for 30 years, and I did struggle with the 12-step program in AA for a while because it was very hard to look at myself and what I had done, and that inventory pretty much scared me away. Uh, this last period, when I finally went into treatment and was willing to give it all I got, one of my trauma therapists recognized, she said, well, you're Native American. And I said, yes. And although I wasn't raised traditionally, so she said, well, have you heard of Wellbriety? So when I got out of treatment, of course, I got on the Wellbriety Zooms, and it was really helpful right after COVID and whatnot. And so, but when I got to Wellbriety, I didn't realize, there were those same 12 steps. I said,
Dang it.
I'm never getting away from these things. But it was, to me, it was a more supportive, spiritual family for me and what I needed. And not, having a toxic, with me having a toxic family, I had found my new family, and, they're so welcoming, and, we're all interconnected and whatnot. And so it's just been a blessing for me. And then from then forward, it has led me to many different pathways, and with nature, and a mentor, and birthing my first drum and whatnot. So just doing all of that, and it's been very beautiful. So I'm just so thankful for the multiple pathways of recovery that we have today, and exploring all of them. And I will definitely be following you on Facebook. So thank you so much for this. It was great. Thank you.
Awesome. We have Karen, and then we're almost at time. Thank you so much. That was beautiful, Carrie.
Hi. So it's actually Karen.
Oh,
Like
Karen, hi.
It's okay. It happens every time somebody tries to say my name. So, I am going to be 6 years sober in March, which means that I got sober during the pandemic, and I didn't use a program. I just went for it and did it all by myself. But because everything was shut down, my therapy and my sobriety came from getting myself out into the woods 3 to 4 times a week. So I really connected with my mom, who's passed away, and just with my spirituality out in the woods. And I know that that's what really grounded me in my sobriety and being able to get to 6 years. So I think that stuff like this that you're doing is incredibly important, because it definitely is a pathway that works. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Golly, thanks for your testimony. I was thinking during the pandemic, like, of people trying to get sober, and just wow, thank you for that. Karen. Yeah, Karen. Okay. Awesome. Well, a lot of great stuff. Never enough time. Let me just share this last slide with you, just so you can stay connected if you wish. I am Rodasi Campbell on Facebook and Instagram. I have a website. This is my email. And then that group I mentioned is Esoterica Recovery Facebook group, which is very small right now, but I'm really just kind of vivifying it, if you will, because I've had a lot of people ask to go deeper, to learn more, to explore for their own recovery. So we've just started to revivify that. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I'm so grateful to CCAR to allow me this space to be with my people here. You guys, you humans, you beautiful X-Men, Jedi, humans out there doing amazing work. I just love us, and um, that's all I've got.
Round of applause for Radasi, everybody. Thank you so much.